Thank you very much. And that little choir there, just be careful. I was actually I was actually in Uganda last week, and I had a phone call, and I didn't recognise the number, so I picked it up and I said hello, and she said, "Hello, this is Rachel." I said, "Rachel, Rachel who?" And she said, "Rachel Mackenzie." I said, "Rachel, what are you ringing me for?" And she said, "I need you to speak today." I got home on Sunday from Uganda, so I'm probably still a little bit jet lagged, but I had no opportunity to prepare a nice PowerPoint. So I've just written a few thoughts down, and I hope that it just gives you a little bit of an overview of 50 years in this industry. Um, every Friday afternoon, I have a drink with a couple of mates at the local tavern. And a few weeks back, one of them turned 70, on past that, well past that, and the other one is as well. But the three of us, we love to get together, and we three old geezers just talking away. Anyway, the conversation went to John, and we said, "So, John turned 70. What would you have done again?" And he said, "I wouldn't have become a lawyer." And we said, "Well, what would you have done?" And he said, "I'd love to have been a carpenter." And then Ron, the other guy, we said, "What about you, Ron?" He said, I wouldn't have had my own business cleaning. I would have become an electrical engineer." Then John turned to me and he said, "No point in asking you." And and that's true. I've been very, very fortunate to be in an industry that I love, um, and to this year it'll be 70 years since I had the opportunity to start. And that start was at Knoxfield at the Horticultural Research Institute. I'd finished university. I was on a scholarship with the Department of Ag, so I didn't get to go and have a muck up week or anything like that. I had to go straight back to work. And I started out at Knoxfield. I was taken out to the field, and there was about 2,500 or 3,000 seedlings sitting there. Nobody was really interested in. David Jones had brought in seeds from the Michigan State University in 1972 and germinated them, but nobody was really interested. There was an ag officer that had a look at them every now and then, um, but they said, "This is your project." So I started having no idea. Nobody gave me any idea of what I was looking for. And so I was naive enough to believe that taste was the thing that was most important. And 50 years later, I'll tell you, I still think that's the important thing, that flavour trumps everything. Well, today we don't call it flavour, we call it consumer um, factors. And these days, I'm very, very fortunate also to not just be working on my own, but working with a team now. Tom's over here is my succession plan, and he's doing an amazing job. Luke in the High Bush program down in Victoria, hands up, Luke. He's doing a great job on the High Bush program. And as a team, some of the ladies that help us with the crosses have been doing them for over 20 years, and so they know what they're doing. And I'm very, very fortunate, man, to have a team that I work with. Not only did I love working with, and they're great people, but they're all very clever people in what they do. So I'm standing here not representing me. I'm standing here representing a team from Mountain Blue that works together to produce good things. Um, the Back in 1976, in January, I put a ribbon on a seedling. I walked past it and I thought, it tastes all right. Let's go back and have another look, and put a ribbon on it. And it became Knoxfield 11A. And Knoxfield 11A, we put it out to growers to trial it because there was a lot of interest. And some of the growers said, "We think this is good." And it eventually became Brigitte. And Brigitte is still grown in some countries. It's still grown in Chile, for instance, and it's grown in probably still one of the most widely grown high bush varieties that are grown in Australia. I took 12 trays of blueberries to the Footscray wholesale market, and I took them round to agents in January 1976, and I said, "What do you think of these?" And not one agent knew what they were. Isn't that amazing? Blueberries in 1976, there was almost zero recognition in Australia. Today, I believe the recognition, and Josh probably could help me with that, or Natalie, but somewhere over 80%, is that right? 65%. There's a long way to go, isn't there? Um, yeah, so what happened then, just to give you a very brief history, there wasn't much money around in those days. I don't think that's changed a lot, has it, in working in an institute like that? And so I was propagating plants and growing seedlings and selling them to get money to have an assistant to work with me. And it was pretty hard going. And in 1981, I thought I started to get interested, well, even before that, in these blueberries that were being bred in the warmer climate states in America, in particular, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, North Carolina. So I went to America for a month and went around looking at all the programs, looking at what was there, and up to New Jersey, across to Michigan, down to Arkansas. And I came back in 1981 thinking, there's a place, but it's not the high bush blueberries that we've been playing with in Victoria. I think the place is the southern high bush blueberries, which were being developed in those southern states, because there was a gap in the market, about 8 weeks from the end of the US season, the end of the northern hemisphere, and the start of the southern hemisphere in Argentina, Chile, South Africa, and New Zealand. There was this gap of about 8 weeks. And I thought, if we can get onto these new varieties out of these warmer states, we can probably start to fill that gap. Today, in fact, the gap, that 8 weeks, is now where a lot of the production is, and people are saying, no, we need blueberries in the main season now, because places like Peru, and I think the figures that were given this morning on Peru of 260,000, I think this year, just listening to a podcast the other day, they're up over 350,000 um, uh, kilos of blueberries. It's amazing what's going on over there. Uh, so what happened then was I decided to leave the Department of Agriculture and move to northern New South Wales. I figured that was the place to go. I started bringing, this is where I met Mark. We became good friends, except I hated taking these phone calls when he'd ring me up and he'd say, one of your plants has got some fishy looking leaves on it. And I'd say, Mark, if you think it's not good, kill it. We don't want any of these bad things. And so we started bringing in southern high bush varieties from America, and we started bringing in seeds. We did a program with the University of Florida. Gary Wright from Costa and myself went over, and for 10 years we worked together, bringing in seedlings, the selections, their best selections. Every year we bring in 10 selections. Interestingly, out of all those selections, probably close to 100 selections, only 2 ever got planted commercially, and even those 2, Star and Crunchy, didn't really become great winners. But we also brought in seeds every year, and from those seeds we started to get some varieties that were grown. And one of them, Arana, we put a ribbon on in 2000, is still the flagship variety for Costas and Driscolls, and that came out of seeds that we brought in from Florida. In 2002, well, even before that, 2001, we parted company, and I went alone, and I had a phone call from Spain, and they asked me if I'd be prepared to come over and head up a breeding program over there. So I made 27 trips to Spain over a period of 7 years, 3 weeks at a time, walking selections and seedlings, putting ribbons on. Eventually, we released some varieties. Probably the flagship variety out of that program was Rocio, still grown in parts of the world, in Mexico and Peru and places. But during the interval week between the 2 weeks that I did walking seedlings, I started making crosses over there and brought the seeds back to Australia. And we raised the seeds here. And in 2008, we were walking a patch of seedlings, and one stood out. And I remember I said, "Wow, look what we found! Look what we found!" And when I told my wife that story, she said, "Eureka! You found it!" And it was what the variety that became Eureka, and Eureka has been an amazing step in our journey. The crunch, the size of the fruit, the vigor of the bush, it really became a standard. Today we wouldn't even put a ribbon on Eureka because it's just isn't up to the scratch of what its progeny are like today. And so you have Eureka Sunrise, and then even Eureka Sunrise now is almost obsolete in terms of where we're at, and we move forward. How do we move forward? Um, we're very careful in our, and it's a collegiate thing when we sit down to plan our crosses. In the early days, I used to do it on a plane coming back from Spain. I'd sit there thinking, but today, all 9 of us will sit around the table and have an input. What about this? What about that? And it's amazing how, some of the technicians will say to us, "Yeah, but that thing does this." And we had one instance where we had a seedling, a selection, and we ended up calling it Eureka Max. And Tom and I were in the field talking about it and showing someone. And then one of the girls said, "Yeah, but we can't pack it. It's so big that we can't get 200 grams into a 200-gram punnet. We can only get 165 grams." So then we started thinking, well, what's the problem there? Why is this doing this? And as we were cutting open the fruit, we found that it had air pockets in the fruit. And so to get 200 grams, the standard 200-gram punnet wouldn't work properly. And that wasn't Tom and I that had figured that out. That was one of the girls that had experience picking them and packing them. So, as I say, if you're going to have a successful breeding program, you need to have people that buy in and people that know what they're doing, because one person cannot do what we do these days. In fact, we have 8 hectares, 20 acres of seedlings and selections to be walked, and there's thousands of them. 2 years ago, we were walking 14,000 seedlings in one lot and about 8,000 in another. And just getting through that number of seedlings, it's impossible for one person to do it on their own and do it properly, because it'd kill you. The acid in your mouth, your mouth gets sore and your teeth start to rot. But we work as a team even at that point. And so anyway, our Mountain Blue varieties are grown in over 40 countries. I think it's over 45 countries around the world now. And our program involves licensing to specific licensees in each country. We're not a program that says, yeah, everybody can grow them. We like to choose who we have grow them, so that we make sure that they're people that know how to grow them and grow them successfully. We have Tom and Craig and Luke who go around the world and spend time with the licensees, helping them to learn how to grow them properly. And Craig, who's not here, but some of you would know, Craig Fulton in South Africa. Craig is visiting different parts around the world. We have trials going, looking at them in different climatic and situations. And what we've become a lot more data driven. Craig, Luke and Tom have both been working on a dashboard where we're putting in data that can be accessed by all our licensees around the world with climatic data, data about the yields and fruit size and all the rest. And that's become very, and will become more and more helpful as the licensees buy in on that. So just how am I going with time? Four to go? 5, okay. I'm about halfway. No, as I said, I wasn't well prepared. Okay, so when we're breeding, we've got 3 groups that we have to keep happy. All right, you've got the consumer, and the consumer, to make the consumer happy, firstly they want to know about the health benefits. And I've been in the industry for 50 years, and I've seen the industry go from what was a fairly small, almost a cottage industry in a way in the very early days. 1998, the health benefits became published. Oprah had them on her show and on different things. All of a sudden, people are eating blueberries, putting them on their breakfast and everything, and the industry just took off. And that health benefit is something that the consumer, not all consumers are aware of it, but the consumers, because of the advertising and the stories around, has been an important factor. The other things, as I said, I was naive enough to believe that flavour was the most important thing. I still believe flavour is very, very important. And to help along with the flavour, we look for crunch now. If it's not crunchy, we don't even put a ribbon on. Even the original Eureka now wouldn't get a ribbon because it's just not crunchy enough. We've moved the bar every year. And part of it is that, I'm not worried about giving secrets away, but if you look at a normal distribution curve, the top 10% of characteristics is what we like to shoot for. And so we have what we call building blocks that have got crunch. And some of them got to the point now where people say to us who see them, they say, no, it's too hard on your teeth. It's like you're now eating a macadamia nut or something. They become too hard. But we can use those as building blocks. And we have building blocks for flavour, building blocks for machine harvest shakeability. And so we're always looking at what the characteristics are. The jumbo size, the jumbo size is also very important. And in China, for instance, every millimetre of size that the fruit goes up in size brings a premium price. So, the 18 mil is the bottom line as far as we're concerned for a jumbo, but it goes up. Then blooms are also important for the consumer. Secondly, the grower. We all know growers. What's the most important characteristics the grower looks for? Yield. Absolutely. That's what I hear all the time. But the grower's also looking for seasonality. They're looking for self-fertility. They want a block plant. They don't want to have orchards where you've got have a row of this and a row of that and another row. Machine harvest. I'm not going to get a chance to talk about it, but we bought a machine harvester from Holland, the Harvey 500, and we're working with that, working with the varieties to get varieties that shake and pack out for fresh pack. And I think that's a game changer for us. Bush characteristics and also the grower wants to look at earliness as well. The retailers are the third ones you're breeding for. You're breeding for shelf life. You're breeding for fruit that doesn't have tears or wet scars. You're looking for fruit that's got a good bloom. So I'll just summarise. I have to jump a bit, but what about the future? The future is in the southern high bush. Earliness continues to be a very important point. Evergreening blueberries, and that came from work from Gary Wright at Costa and ourselves, and Ian Vimpany, a consultant. And the evergreening of blueberries changed the industry in all the subtropical climates. Then in the northern high bush that Luke's working on, we're looking at hardiness. How do we determine what what temperatures a blueberry will be able to stand? Any particular blueberry? We're developing or working on trying to develop a protocol for measuring cold hardiness. And finally, Tom's doing a PhD in molecular genetics, and we see that as a way forward. We don't see it as the only way, but we see that long term, this will be a great addition to our program. So I better stop there, but I hope that's just given you a little bit of an overview.